Greetings, Packers fans, wherever you may be. It's time for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Very excited about this coming weekend, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But first, we are at 12,400 subs, and I can't thank you enough for all your support. I didn't think this channel would grow so quickly, but it's thanks to all of you that it has. Can we get to 13,000 subs before Thanksgiving? I would be very thankful on Thanksgiving if we can get to 13,000 subs by Thanksgiving. So really appreciate all the support. As we prepare for the Vikings, injuries really become the top concern. So let's take a quick look at the injury report from Thursday. Once again, this is the injury report from Thursday. So let's take a look at that. As we get closer to the game, we're going to see players ramp up, and we're going to get a clearer picture on which players will play and will not play. So let's take a look at that injury report. Brought to you by Amplify Health on the Packers.com website for Thursday, November 20th. All right, let's look at the Packers injuries first. Carl Brooks did not participate Wednesday or Thursday due to an ankle injury. I'm becoming more and more concerned that Carl Brooks might not be able to play in this game. And he has really been a big unsung hero at defensive tackle for the Packers this year. When he's in the rotation, they are much better at stopping the run. And we know we're up against our good friend Aaron Jones this week, who would love to finally get a touchdown against the Packers and try to do a Lambeau leap. So we definitely want that not to happen on Sunday night. So we'll watch that very closely. If Carl Brooks doesn't play, hopefully we have some other reinforcements, and we'll talk about that as we get further down the list. Javon Bullard with an ankle injury, limited participation Wednesday and Thursday. I think Javon Bullard will be able to play. My hope here is he does a full participation on Friday and it's good for the game on Sunday. If Javon Bullard does not play, that really becomes an issue, because then since he's our de facto nickel corner, he's our third defensive back in three wide receiver sets. That really becomes an issue because the Packers are very thin at corner, and we know the Vikings have really good corners. So we're going to have to watch this very closely. He might be one of the most important limited participation players this week just because of the Vikings wide receiver lineup. Edgerrin Cooper with a foot injury, limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Hopefully he'll be a full participant on Friday and good to go for the game. Romeo Doubs, wrist injury, limited. Hopefully he'll be full on Friday. You'll see a theme here. Limited. Nate Hobbs, we know Nate Hobbs will not be available this week, so we won't spend any time on him. All right, Josh Jacobs. This is the big one, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in our news and notes segment. Knee injury. He did not participate on Wednesday. Limited participation on Thursday. My guess would be he would be limited again on Friday. But just because Josh Jacobs is limited doesn't mean he can't play on Friday. He has a track record. He's a veteran player. He can go from limited to being a full player, or at least a snap count player on Sunday, which is what I would expect to see. I think Josh Jacobs, if he does play on Sunday, it will be on a snap count. The most likely scenario is they let Wilson do some of the heavy lifting around until they get to the goal line, because goal line is where Josh Jacobs is exceptional. So don't be surprised if Josh Jacobs plays, if he's limited, because they really want him fully healthy for the game on Thursday, which is a huge game for the Packers. We have Jordan Love, full participation. He will be fine. I don't anticipate any problems. As discussed earlier, I would anticipate that they put some additional padding on him for game days because that left shoulder still needs time to heal. It's a non-throwing shoulder, but if there was a significant injury to that shoulder, it would be bad news. So expect them to put extra padding on the left shoulder and do some pain management for the game. Brandon McManus, full participation Wednesday, Thursday. Expect the same on Friday. Brandon McManus, I expect, will be the kicker on Sunday. The Packers at some point are going to have to make a decision at kicker because we have players that are going to come off injured reserve that need that extra spot that's being taken up by Haversack right now. Now, I expect McManus will be our kicker for the rest of the season. Maybe you let Haversack go. If he gets through waivers, you put him on the practice squad so you can have a backup kicker. And in that regard, the fact that he struggled in the game against the Giants might actually be a good long-term thing for the Packers if they could slip him onto the practice squad after he clears waivers. Bo Melton, shoulder injury. This is a new injury. He wasn't injured on Wednesday, so this was an injury that happened in practice. So, again, we're very short at corner until we get Nate Hobbs back. So, this is something we're going to have to watch very closely. Keyshawn Nixon had an illness, limited participation Wednesday, Thursday. I expect Nixon to probably be a full participant on Friday as that illness hopefully works its way out of his system. Micah Parsons will be playing. He's just getting some veteran rest, and they're working him through his pectoral injury, but he will play a full snap count. Zach Tom, limited. He will probably be even limited on Friday, but I expect Zach Tom to play in this game. Now, this is the big one, and this is going to help with Brooks. Lucas Van Ness, limited participation Wednesday, limited participation Thursday. I would love to see Lucas Van Ness get back to full participation on Friday and be a full availability on Sunday for the game. One of the reasons the Packers were so efficient the first couple weeks, and this was something I recommended once we signed Micah Parsons, is putting Lucas Van Ness at defensive tackle, and then you have basically 3 high-quality pass rushers going after the quarterback. So I expect Lucas Van Ness to be a go for this week. I haven't heard anything that makes me think otherwise. So he's had plenty of time to get over this foot injury, and I think he will be a go this week. And that will really change the dynamic on defense, and we'll talk about that on the pregame show. Now, Quay Walker did not participate. This is something that's concerning. Quay Walker is a key part of this defense. Now, McDuffie has done very good in reserve or stepping up to play the middle linebacker for Quay Walker. One of my concerns here is McDuffie is not great in coverage, and Quay Walker is better in coverage than McDuffie. So we're going up against an athletic tight end this week. So if McDuffie is forced to cover the tight end, that's going to be a tall ask for a whole game for McDuffie. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. Next up, we have Christian Watson. Knee injury. He'll be fine. And in fact, he seems to get better and better as we saw against the Giants. I think one of the things we learned about in the game against the Giants is Christian Watson is ready to take the leadership role. He's ready to be a playmaker and not just a, stretch the field guy. He's looking to be an every play playmaker for the Packers, and that's something they desperately need at wide receiver. Donatavian Wicks, limited participation with the calf injury. He should be good to go in this game. Savion Williams did not participate Wednesday. He participated Thursday. I expect him to be limited on Friday and be available for game day. And let's look at the Vikings. The Vikings also have some pretty significant injuries that we have to look at. In particular, Christian Darshaw here, really big development here. He's a key part of the protection for JJ. Full participation on Wednesday, did not participate on Thursday due to an injury. Now, we're going to have to watch this on Friday. Was this like veteran rest that he did not participate? Or is there a bigger problem here? Because that would really be a big part of this game if Darshaw could not play on Sunday. Freeze did not participate on Wednesday, limited participation on Thursday. He seems like he's leaning towards maybe being able to play. Friday is going to be a critical report for him. Jonathan Grenard, shoulder injury, did not participate Wednesday, limited participation Thursday. Again, this is another player we want to watch very closely to see if he gets back into full participation on Friday. So we might have Darshaw, Freeze, and Grenard both all questionable for this game. So we're going to have to watch this closely. Aaron Jones, he's going to be playing on Sunday at Lambeau. And Ryan Kelly is a full participation after a concussion. So those are your injury updates for this game. I think we're going to be fine from the Packers' standpoint, especially when we're looking at the opposition this week. And it's really going to come down to what we do on Sunday. The Packers definitely have more injuries, but I would argue that they have more depth than the Minnesota Vikings to address those particular injuries. So we're going to watch that very closely and see what we have later on in the week. So let's talk about news and notes. Number one for me, and Matt LaFleur is probably not happy about this, is Josh Jacobs was talking to the media on Thursday, and he was very adamant about the fact that he could play on Sunday and that he is definitely going to play on Thursday. So let's give you the quote from Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones said, "Worst case, if I don't play this week, Thursday I'll definitely be playing. It's not like something that will linger past that. It's really a worst case scenario." Yeah. So Aaron Jones might be a scratch this week just because they want to get him fully healthy for the Lions game. And I would not hate that idea. Okay? The Lions game, and that goes for all of the players that are currently injured right now. Lions on Thursday are job number one. I don't want to look past the Vikings because we need that win. But what I'm telling you there is Thursday could go a long way towards deciding the division. Okay? If the Packers win next Thursday, that almost eliminates the Lions, all things being equal, as long as the Packers continue to win, from being a threat to win the division. And then it just comes down to the Bears and the Packers. And I feel very confident that the Packers can handle business against the Bears. And the Lions are by far the bigger threat for the division. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. So the Packers medical staff and the coaching staff have to think about long-term injury impact and also whether the player will be available on Thursday or not if they play on Sunday. If the Packers are going to play shorthanded, Sunday is definitely the better option than playing shorthanded against the Detroit Lions on the road. You do not want to see that happen. So we're going to watch that very closely as we get closer to game time. My prediction is that Josh Jacobs might just be a red zone back on Thursday, and they let Wilson handle things between the 20s. That feels like the most likely scenario because Josh Jacobs is so good in the red zone that he can make the difference in the game, even if he only plays 15 or 20 snaps. If those 15 or 20 snaps are in the red zone, That's going to be a big component for this game. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. Big news for the Packers Week 14. Those of you that have tickets, pay attention. The Chicago Bears Week 14 game against the Packers at Lambeau has been flexed to the late afternoon game. So that's probably going to be America's game of the week. It's now going to be 3:25 Central Time. So that's really big news for the Bears and the Packers, because what that means is the whole media is acknowledging the fact that the division is probably going to come down to Packers versus Bears and those two matchups. So, and they come in the space of 3 weeks. So the Packers really need to tee up on those Bears, especially at home at Lambeau. So that's going to be a huge game for the Packers. I mean, I think every game down the stretch is going to be a huge game for the Packers. And that's what the NFL wanted when they put the division matchups towards the end of the season. And I think it has worked out well. So let's talk about J.J. McCarthy. He's going to be very important for this game. He has really struggled, to say the least, in this game. But he feels like he has a cork about to come out of the bottle, quote unquote. And that it's just a matter of time before he becomes a high-quality quarterback. I'm very dubious about that. We'll have to see. I'm really worried for Justin Jefferson that they're wasting some of his best years with this quarterback change. Could you imagine if they had kept Sam Darnold, if they had kept Jones off the depth chart last year, and how he's playing against Indy, the Vikings could easily have been a contender for the NFC if it wasn't for this quarterback change. Now, whenever you have a rookie quarterback that you draft in the first round, at some point you have to make that transition. But it's definitely had a bad impact for the Vikings this year. And I'm very dubious about whether McCarthy is the long-term answer for the Vikings. We're going to have to see some significant improvement. So one of the things I want to talk about that kind of flew under the radar and could have a big impact in the game on Sunday is the Vikings made a surprise move when they waived Dwight McGuthern from their active roster on Thursday. Now, why this is significant is because the Vikings right now only have 3 active cornerbacks on their active roster: Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, and Fabian Moreau. It's very unusual in the NFL that they only have 3 quarterbacks in the active roster 3 days before a game. So now they can pull up players from their practice squad to fill in those gaps. But if one of those 3 corners goes down in the game on Sunday, Jordan Love is going to feast, because they're going to be down to practice squad players in their secondary, and that is a big problem. Now, I have to wonder at this late in the season why they're waiving a player from their active roster. The Minnesota Vikings, from a GM management standpoint, might have decided that this year is over and they're looking at playing with their roster to see if they can improve it for next year. Most of the NFC North has significant cap issues next year. The Packers are actually in the best position, but the Lions, the Vikings especially, and the Bears all have significant salary cap issues next year. The Packers are going to have to maneuver around as well, but there are some players that will likely not be on the roster next year that will give them some cap room. But the Vikings and the Lions in particular have significant cap issues next year. So are they losing this quarterback to see if they can add somebody off maybe some practice squads, maybe add some depth at other positions, knowing that they're making changes next year in the offseason? That's the only thing that makes sense why they would cut a player off the active roster this late in the week. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. The call-ups for the Packers on Saturday are going to be very important to watch. Now let's talk about this matchup. We're going to go through the individual matchups tomorrow when I release my video for the pregame show. But let's talk about the matchup in general and some of the keys to the game for this game against the Vikings. A game that I will be at. Very excited about that. Once again, if you want to try to meet up before the game or something like that, hit me up at packattackcast@gmail.com. And we could try to make that happen since I'll be in Lambeau. I'll be in Green Bay on Saturday afternoon. I'll be there Sunday morning, obviously, and I'll be there for the game and after the game. So very excited about going to the game. My only disappointment about going to the Packer game this Sunday is we're not going to have snow. When I planned this trip, I said there's surely going to be snow at the end of November in Green Bay, but it has not happened yet. So thanks global warming for that one. But maybe we'll have a Sunday miracle and we'll have some snow. I don't know. But I'm very excited about being at that game. Packers are favored by 6.5 points. This is a divisional clash, as we know. The Vikings are desperate to keep their playoff hopes alive, while the Packers are fighting to solidify their NFC North standing. And that's why this game is so important. Let's go to Packers keys to victory for the game. The Packers really need to focus on the one big danger in this game is neutralizing the Vikings blitz. The Minnesota Vikings lead the NFL in blitz rate, meaning Jordan Love will face constant pressure. The benefit of that is Jordan Love is really good when blitzed. He can find the quick out, and if the receivers can actually catch the ball this week, I think we will be fine there. But I'm more concerned about injuries for Jordan Love than them stopping the passing attack with the blitz. The last thing we need is a quarterback injury going into Detroit. The Packers will have to use the quick pass game, screens, and max protection to keep Jordan Love upright. So on third down, look for the Packers to have Brooks out there as their running back to help with pass protection. I think we're going to see Brooks mainly on third down, and he's going to mainly be a blocker. As you saw last week when he made that amazing block to allow Jordan Love to hit Savion Williams for possibly the game-winning pass, Brooks is exceptional at stopping the blitz. So hopefully that will be a neutralizer against that Vikings blitz. Now their success rate for the blitz has not been great, but they do blitz more than anyone else in the NFL. So we're going to see that a lot on Sunday. Packers need to establish the run game. Wilson is very solid, and I think he will do fine in the rushing game against the Vikings if, as I suspect, Josh Jacobs is in a pitch count. So we're going to have to watch that very importantly. We want to keep those Vikings wide receivers off the field as much as possible. J.J. McCarthy has thrown very inconsistently, especially as far as not only his accuracy is bad. J.J. McCarthy is hitting 59% of his passes, but his on-target rate, which is how close the pass is to his receivers, is really bad, and that will lead to potential interception opportunities. So the Packers need to catch those interceptions this week, not like last week. They need to catch every interception opportunity they have in this game. They need to force J.J. McCarthy into mistakes through disguised coverages and pressure, and that will be a big part of this game. If J.J. McCarthy struggles, as he has the last couple weeks, the Packers will win this game. If J.J. McCarthy gets that cork out of the bottle, as he likes to say, this could be a dangerous game because of how good the wide receivers are for the Vikings. The Packers really need to improve their red zone efficiency. They did better last week against the Giants, but they did horrible against their previous two opponents. The Packers need to be very efficient in the red zone. I'd like to see touchdowns on 75% of red zone possessions in this game. That's going to go a big way to winning this game. We have to limit explosive plays because the Vikings have excellent wide receivers. If J.J. McCarthy can get the ball to those receivers, that's where we're going to have some problems. So we must prevent big gains in the passing game. So those are the keys to the game so far. We're going to go through matchups and more details as we get to our pregame show, which will be available tomorrow morning. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Let me give you an update on what we're going to have for you the rest of the week. So tomorrow morning, we're going to have our pregame show with our last injury updates, which we'll have from Friday's practice. Then on Saturday, you're going to have your pregame show. Then on Sunday, I will probably give you an update on the call-ups for the Vikings and the Packers and how that will impact the game. So it'll be a quick update for you on Sunday morning. And then at the stadium, I'll try to give you an update on the actives and inactives. And then on Sunday after the game, we will have a post-game reaction show once I literally walk my way to my hotel. It's a bit of a walk, so it might be an hour or so before I get to that post-game show, and then we'll have a reaction show. So very excited about that. Now, I will be traveling on Monday, so while I'm traveling, I'm going to try to watch the All-22 for the game, and then on Tuesday, we'll have a more detailed reaction on the game after I've watched the All-22. So that's an update on what to expect for the rest of the week. Those of you in Green Bay, I look forward to seeing you. And as always, go Pack Go. And next time we do a video, next video will be a pregame show. I'll be doing that here before I leave. And then I will be doing reporting from Green Bay this weekend. Very excited about that. Talk to you guys later. As always, go Pack Go. And hopefully we'll have a victory Monday for sure after the game.